beating rainbow.
We talked briefly before about Simon's introduction to occultism, and from the same book he discusses some other scary semantics for some people, like, pagan comes from Latin paganus, which is a rural country dweller, often outside the realm or kingdom, or on the outskirts. Heathens comes from heath or hearth, those that gather around the fire, again indication of the rural. In his essay Microcosm and Macrocosm, he makes some very good axioms concerning celestial magic and aliens, elves, and Anunnaki. But specifically what he points out is there's a physical world we see and a metaphysical world we don't see. And then the physical actions in the physical world influence metaphysical world, like magic. So you can perform things like sympathetic magic. Visible aspects have metaphysical counterparts and vice versa. Metaphysical or unseen actions from the underworld or otherworld can influence the world that we see, and it seems like religion is an example of that. Regardless, there seems to be a correlative connection between the visible and invisible worlds. Since we really don't see the invisible world with our physical experience, the medium of the underworld or otherworld is invisible to the world of form that we see. And the world that we see is connected to light, making things visual, measurable. The invisible world is ruling to darkness, that which is unmeasurable. We hear concepts such as the unspeakable name or the unnumberable or the unknown number. These concepts occur in occultism quite often. Day and night can be appropriately correlated to light and dark, and in nighttime there's the allowance that the invisible is manifest, when the stars and planets are the only light sources. And these are oftentimes invisible during the day, during the light. The light of stars and planets is not distinguished in ancient lore. Both are brought to light at night. And stars, planets, names for deities all seem to be correlated, as is the ancient word for heaven, all seem to be the same place name. But lore would suggest three existences: a visible world we see, an invisible world we don't see, and some sort of gate or world in between. And our work, or metaphysical work, is to try and bridge that avenue of communication between worlds. But mystics operate, by definition, in a world of fantasy, the light, not reality of the realm, fantasia, if you will. We of course recognize the root of these terms, which you can find, I believe, in Greenleaf Part 5. But the only support to the wizard is a secret society or organization that supports efforts and protects the identity of the wizard from the more loyal subjects of the realm. The truth comes against the world. And that is the motto of the Neo-Druids of the Bardish tradition, based on the Bardish, which is a controversial book. I am hardly mainstream, and my favorite sources are even less so. Most controversial they are. Sitchin, Simon, Vere, Twyman, Monroe, even Fred Allen Wolfe, they all demonstrate that truth of the ages comes against the world. Liberals get queasy with this lore because they find that all men aren't equal or even the same genetics. And the orthodoxes and fundamentalists, well, with my Gnostic mysteries, they reveal the secrets of the Vatican, but if you read the first line and chapter of the New Testament, you'll see what I mean. New Agers, well, many of the New Agers seem to be incapable of true grimoire magic, the magic of the Dragon Kings or Abramelin, Solomon, etc. It's a genetic or socio-cultural barrier, and white supremacists, they use the lore as justification for their own bull crap, and they fail to realize that 90% of European genetics still comes from the lineages of a race created for field labor and tending to Eden. Well, now that we've pissed everybody off, I guess the biblical deluge is good as any as a place to start. describes conflicting aspects to sole deity Yahweh, but early Sumerian texts attribute this disinclination of mankind to Enlil and the saving of mankind, such as Noah's Ark, to Enki. And the Bible glosses over these things for the sake of monotheism. Using Sumerian, Babylonian, biblical, and geological data, we might attribute the deluge to approximately 10,800 to 10,000 BC, during the age of Leo. The Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came, first arrived 120 Nibirian orbits or shars before the deluge, approximately 432,000 years before the deluge. The dynastic succession of the Anunnaki, and later the Dragon Kings and Elven Fairy, they required the marrying of half-sisters of different mothers. You must consider, though, Abraham, who in Genesis, he introduces Sarah as both his wife and his sister. Abraham was originally named Abram when he lived in Sumer. He was one of the Dragon Kings, actually, a descendant of them. Jesus was also a descendant from Abraham, David, and Solomon, which is what justified his kingship or Enlilship of the Semitic. It's right there on the first page of the New Testament. Speaking of Abraham, in Genesis, he lifts his eyes when he's approached by three men. But wait, then they're recognized as divine beings, the Elohim. He throws himself to the ground as their servant. Oh, but wait, as they turn to walk away, the leader is identified as Lord God Yahweh. Not only does Yahweh appear somewhat mistakable as a man, but man and God openly debate over the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, which did take place using nuclear weapons, causing the Dead Sea, and uranium-235 deposits in the burnt sand there. Sitchin explains clear details on all of this. In 2024 BC, Sumerian civilization collapsed when the cities were emptied by an evil wind that left the buildings unscathed.
Send it down to your local library or bookstore and pick it up.